Welcome, Kevin. We are very excited to have you join us as our expert guest, talking about the connection between innovation and management. So tell us a story about a major innovation moment in your career.
It was just about a week after I got to a new job at a spinal implant manufacturing company, and there was a team working on a new pedicle screw, a spinal implant, and they were stuck. They'd been stuck for months and months, and they came to me. And part of my job was just to be sort of a catch-all. So I had that freedom right from the start that, my boss trusted me enough to be like, hey, if there's anything going on that anyone's struggling with, just throw it over to Kevin and see if he's got any ideas or something, just as another, brain to bounce ideas off of. So this particular spinal implant, it's for a pedicle screw, and I'll actually show you what the end version was. So this is a pedicle screw that goes into your vertebra, and it's implanted. And this is very unique because there's no set screw on the top. And a set screw this is a standard pedicle screw with a set screw on top that's holding this rod in place. But this new one doesn't have a set screw. So it's very different. So the instruments are very different, and it's very complicated to lock everything in place. And one of the biggest problems was, in order to lock this, it requires 1,000 pounds force to smush it together in the body. So you don't want to disrupt the body either. And the instruments have to be very robust or they'll just break, and you can't have instruments breaking in surgery. So the team came to me and said, hey, do you have any ideas on how we can fix this? And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll take a look at it. I don't know, I've not seen this before. So I thought about it, think about engineering, but I'm also tapping into everything that I've ever really been exposed to in my life. And what ended up coming to me was a way to grab on to this outer housing. This is the outer housing, this is the inner housing, and a way to grab onto this outer housing. Originally, they were grabbing all the way down here, but it was getting in place of the bony anatomy all the way down here. So I was thinking about adding some kind of lip, and the way that I got the idea for that lip was from a hanging potted plant in my mom's kitchen. It's this just a regular potted plant that has a lip to the pot, and it would have 3 little like fake plastic cords that came down and would hook this lip, and that's what would hold the potted plant up. And I was like, well, if we just add material to this outside, hope you can see that, to this outside, add this little lip, then you can attach instruments several millimeters up and get it away from the bony anatomy. So I shared this idea. I figured out like how big does the lip need to be and how strong is it going to be and is it going to break off and so on. But I shared this with the team, and the next day, the designer, so it was a whole team effort, the designer came back with this beautiful smooth curve of the implant with this beautiful lip that would be big enough and strong enough to attach the instrument and generate 1,000 pounds force. And, this is a project that had been stuck for months and months and months. And with that idea, it just took off. And this was back in 2005. And I learned that in October of 2020, 1 million of these screws have been implanted in people globally. And when you talk about the ultimate, return on that investment, we are saving or improving the lives of tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe. And also, this screw retailed, at least in 2005, for $1,400. So with 1 million implanted, that's 1.4 billion in revenue just from this one screw. So that was a team effort. They came to me, had an idea for my mom's potted plant, and it just took off.
Wow, that's so cool. So talk to me about what it takes for an organization to create a situation, an environment where breakthrough ideas can happen. What does that look like? And also, what does the opposite of that look like?
Well, I think for me and my experiences over my 30-year career, um, I'd say that, I'd only been at that organization for a week when this problem came across my desk. But I knew that I was hired it was a previous boss, it's someone I'd worked for in the past at a different company. But I knew I had his 100% trust, and he believed in me, fully believed in me. So I felt fully confident to try anything. And, I was only there to help out another team. So if I didn't come up with anything, that's okay. There was no like extra pressure or demand, like, you've got to come up with an industry changing, implant or device right now. Like, I've never seen that work in 30 years. I've never seen a group of people. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but I've never seen a group of people say like, oh, we're going to schedule a brainstorming session from 2 to 4 on Tuesday, and we're going to come up with an industry changing invention. Like, I've never seen that. It's when you allow the opportunity for ideas to flow, and you're always surrounded by people who believe in each other, who know each other, who value each other, who understand each other, not just the work that they can do, but as people. They really appreciate each other as people, and they have a good time, and they joke around, and it's very playful, and you never know when an idea is going to spark. And when you're in such a relaxed, free-flowing, supportive, I'll even say loving environment, that's when you're not afraid to share ideas that might be completely ridiculous, then just be terrible ideas. I can't tell you how many terrible ideas we've come up with that never went anywhere, but you're free to come up with those ideas. But when we are existing in so many workplaces, and I've been a part of these workplaces too, where the overall culture is shame and judgment and degradation, like putting people down for a bad idea, or just neglect, like not even listening. Too often bosses don't even listen to their employees. And it's the employees who really do have the best ideas typically, because they're on the ground floor working with the products and services or working with the customers. So they can identify what the real problems are. But then the bosses and managers don't even listen. So what I call all of that judgment and shame and that kind of negative or toxic culture, this is all what really goes to supporting our emotional health. And that's where I distinguish between emotional health, which is how connected you feel with each other, how loving, how much of a belonging you have with each other, versus our mental health, which to me, mental health is more about your ability to focus and concentrate and think clearly and perform these cognitive tasks. So for example, in the engineering world, I can do the detailed design drawings and come up with the tolerances and identify materials and manufacturing processes and write test reports and protocols. That's all my mental ability. But if I don't feel valued, if I don't feel like my boss believes in me, the ideas don't even come, because I don't feel worthy. I don't feel valuable in that organization.
So what's one thing that a manager could do to really cultivate that spirit of creativity, that openness, that trust that you're talking about?
I truly believe the best thing that a manager can do is get to know each team member and have all the team members really get to know each other as people first, and learn to value and care about each other. Because the more we feel cared for, the more we feel loved. And the more we feel loved, the more we feel like if we make a mistake, we're not going to get in trouble for it. And, when you're talking about innovation, you don't just come up with it on the first try and you're done. I mean, that just doesn't, it's an iterative process. So you have to be able to fail. People talk about failing quickly. I don't really like that whole idea or term so much, but you have to be in an environment where it's okay to fail, and you don't always have to be productive 100% of the time.